Oh, hell. I think I lost connection somehow, but it's reconnecting. See what happens. Thanks for hanging in there. Alright, looks like I gotta try and reload everything because I lost my router, my OBS somehow didn't connect, or lost connection with and my router lost connection with the internet, and I have no internet connection currently. So, I'm just gonna wait for it to resolve. It should resolve itself within moments. Ladies and gentlemen, moments. Alright, I see I have internet connection. Maybe I will run a troubleshoot. Sometimes that'll fix it. But thank you for hanging in there. I am as well missing the conversation that I so wanted to really listen to, but hopefully we won't have missed too much. Usually those guys, they repeat a lot, so we shouldn't have too much trouble catching up once we are resolved. And looks like, yes, the situation is resolved, and we are back and connected. Thank you for waiting.
Okay, and that's why she became hyper radicalized as a Christian and a solipsist. Okay, she's out of her fucking mind. The #2 selling author in American history. Okay, this fucking lunatic bitch. Okay, she's just fucking out of her goddamn mind. This woman literally believed. Okay, she's on the record saying that when I die, the reality ceases to exist.
Well, right here, I have proven that they went after all Christians, and they basically starved them. They threw them in gulags. There was a mass murder of Russian Christians and destruction of their churches.
And it was because they were Jewish Bolsheviks. Is that your argument?
Well, take it as you want. You know what I mean? That's all I can say is that. But this is proven my fact that, yeah, Christians were targeted for destruction under basically the Soviet.
Dude, you've been Christianity was targeted.
I have several links that prove that part of
Christianity, these religions. Listen, how many Christians were there? Because I thought they were Eastern Orthodox. Can you explain that to me as well? Can you please address that?
Well, there are different sects of Christianity, but still they were targeted.
Okay, people that are Eastern Orthodox are not the same as Christians. Do you follow a little bit?
But the thing is true, they were attacking all followers of Christ. That's the point.
The Greek Eastern Orthodoxy is the primary schism in Christianity, right? This is the switch between the Greek Orthodox, which was because of the split of the Roman Empire, and the Roman Catholics on the West, right? That's actually where the word Arian comes from, not with a Y, but with an I, right? The Greek Orthodox was the Arian branch of Christianity that spread up, from the east up into Russia, and is the origin of the Greek Orthodox Church in Christian following in Russia.
Yeah, good background information. But this guy is making the ludicrous argument that it was the Jewish. He's putting an emphasis on the Jewish. Here's the fact of the matter: Jews have more money than cryptors, so he's upset. Women get laid more than cryptors, so he's a woman hater because they won't lay with him. Just like with Ayn Rand, listeners, it's the same thing.
There's a reason why the Jews earn more money. Yeah. The Ashkenazi Jews score the highest on the IQ test, man. That's the reason why Jews earn the most money, man. Because they're more intelligent.
You know, it was years back when I started studying on Ayn Rand, and at the time I had just finished reading Aristotle, and I could tell it's one particular phrase in one particular book that she misinterpreted. Okay, she took it the wrong way and based her entire philosophy off of this misunderstanding and misinterpretation of Aristotle. I can't remember what the phrase is. I can't remember which book it's from, but that's exactly what the fuck happened with her. And it was when she was around 10 years old or something like that, right? That influenced her profoundly. So anyway, that's, yeah. You know, I wish I could give you the detail on that. But if you study, you'll find out.
Or I don't need
I'm right.
I have the links. I know the history. You know what I mean? Of what happened under the Bolshevik regime.
Yeah, you understand? You gotta look into atheist literature, man. Okay, like just read it, and nobody's saying you gotta take it or leave it as you will. But look at it, right? Look at it, and give it a chance. Weigh it out.
Are you a socialist, Research?
For the most part.
Yeah, you're a socialist. That would explain why you're defending like Soviet murders and butchers. You know.
I'm not defending.
Yeah, you're defending them. You're saying, well, what they did wasn't that bad compared to the Nazis, even though it was a lot worse.
Well, this, everything is, it's a matter of relative comparison. Okay, now
that's relative. Relative is the numbers of bodies compared to any other. I mean, if you want to look at the quantity of body counts,
you have to. Like when you go into court, okay, the jury, you got the evidence for and against, okay, and you look at it. This is how debate works. You look at the evidence on each side.
Well, I
make your choice on after you weighed all the facts, right?
But obviously, you're going to defend your side because you don't want to see the dark side of socialism.
There is no dark side. This is you're projecting that dark side.
Hey, Crypt, hold on a second. Crypter, have you ever used the services of a public school system? Have you ever gone to a library, Crypter?
I've been to a library, dude.
Have you ever used the services of the police or the fire department?
Yeah, I was going to say fire department. It used to be privatized in the USA.
Yeah, they did. All of them were private. So why aren't you out there protesting all these socialist organizations we have right now in America?
Yeah, like the military, too.
That's socialist.
That is a very much of a straw man argument that you can make.
How is that a straw man argument, dude? You have socialism all around you, and you're laying into the surge of being a socialist, but you don't even look around in your own country and complain about it. You're just like,
yeah, I have.
Roads, public parks. Right, we should have. If we had, I can't. I'd love to sit down.
So everything has to be owned by the government, right? There's no private.
No, not everything. No. See, that's a misunderstanding about communism. Communism, nowhere does Marx rule out private ownership of property. Okay, and it gets really tricky because we get into semantics because there's a difference between property and land. Okay, which a lot of the times it's synonymous, but land is different from property because anything you own is your property, right?
Really?
Private property.
Really? What about land? What about land, the private property? Because under communist philosophy, there is no private property. Everything.
No, that's not true. That's what I'm just making the point that no, that is not true. Okay, that's propaganda. That's myth.
Oh, that's myth. Oh, that's really myth. I've said my piece. I'm going to go.
Where we work. That's Marxism is about the means of production. Right? It's about where we work to produce goods. Okay, and ownership of land and stuff. There's private land and then there's public land. Okay, and I am a very strong proponent for public ownership of a lot of industries. Here, for example, okay, in Russia, the largest gas company they have, Gazprom, okay, is a mix of private and public ownership. It's traded on the open market, on the stock exchange, but the government retains a majority controlling share of the corporation. Okay, so the profits that come from that are that's revenue for the government. Okay, now when you have profits, corporate profits going as revenue for the government, you don't have to pay taxes, right? Because the primary source of government revenue as it stands under capitalism is taxation. They tax your income. They tax your land. Okay, you're getting taxed. So you're paying one way or the other, right? So, that's the thing. Like banking as a private industry, I consider banking to be the most essential service that there is. Okay, because, money, currency, you cannot have a modern fucking economy without currency. Okay, it's more important than even oil is, right? And oil is a staple to any modern economy. Now, you look around the world. Look at Qatar, for example. Qatar, small nation, lots of fucking oil reserves. Okay, they don't have income tax there. They don't have income tax. They don't have property tax. They don't have sales tax. Okay, and their government runs a massive surplus, and they have a relatively good quality of life living standards. They have universal health care. They have public schooling. Okay, and their universal health care in Qatar even covers tourists. If you are a visitor, you are insured by their taxes for your health concerns and your health costs. Okay, now if that doesn't prove that these socialist, oh shit, he left. Damn, I was on a roll there, right? That's the thing, is like, even in Alaska has nationalized their oil industry to a large extent. And when we nationalize the industries, the revenues, the profits, people work. Okay, people make their livings, they get their salaries and everything, but the profits above and beyond that goes into the public treasury, which cuts taxes.
Hey, how's this lot doing?
So you're making the argument that it's better if the government owns the majority of the businesses, like Serge?
Well, I'm saying, large industries, like, that's the thing. It doesn't rule out entrepreneurship also. Okay, and private businesses.
Why are you whining, Serge?
Pardon me?
Why are you whining?
Well, I'm not whining. I'm talking. So you're projecting your emotional,
Oh man, Cryptor's gone.
Yeah, Cryptor took off. He's tough.
I wanted to start asking him about how the Bible says kill the non-believers.
Don't worry, man. Don't worry.
Yo, hey, Outbound.
Outbound. You gained a lot of weight, dude.
Yo,
Tifa's
what do you want to know? What is your spirit?
Yeah, I gained a little
What does your
weight.
spirit crave, Outbound? What is your spirit? What do you want to see manifest in the world?
What do I want to see manifest in the world?
Yes.
I mean, the abandonment of religion would be a good start.
What for? What's the reason?
For
moral purposes.
You want to be a faggot.
For scientific advancement.
You want to have sex with other men. That's
for
why,
the reduction of violence.
Maybe so that you would be a faggot, Tifa.
No, I think Christianity signals pretty hard against homosexuality.
I think Tifa's one of those self-hating,
It's a sin against your flesh, sir.
Yeah, but are you a Christian, Tifa?
I would say, I would say that I'm a spiritual man,
but not a Christian.
Do you believe that Jesus Christ died for your sins?
You know what? I say that's open to debate, but what do you guys think consciousness is? Since we're gonna ask deep questions,
It's
if
a
you're gonna ask me
concept.
that, I answered that question. Now I'm gonna ask you a question. What is consciousness?
It's a concept we made up to describe the flow of, a series of events that's occurring in your brain.
Well, it's been said by me. It's been said by me that consciousness spurs not from the flesh. It's not your muscles. It's not your bones.
Yeah, you claim that, but you have no basis for it.
But how do the muscles cause you to feel
I'm glad
sad?
you're asking that. Like the fact that you're asking, it displays that you have an ignorance about the subject. So instead of making statements of fact that it doesn't come from this or it does come from that, you should accept your ignorance on the subject and just admit that you don't know.
Well, what I've said is that we are the conduit running through our body. We are we are all the
So
dynamic
you're
electricity.
going to ignore what I just said, and you're going to assert it again without a basis.
This is my best guess, and I'm being very transparent.
Based on
I'm
what?
not trying to hide anything. Based, all right.
It's your best guess based on what?
Based on the concept of having a will to live, you know, having free will. We can make.
We don't. Free will is an illusion.
You can make.
Yeah, it is. It's
free will is an illusion. What are you trapped by? What are your limits then? Define them.
We think categorically and we think in absolutes.
Do you think that we're unlimited?
We have a measure of free will, but it's not absolute. Okay, like for example, you don't have the choice.
How do you determine that? How do you determine that? How do you determine whether we're limited or not?
Well, can you decide to not eat and drink and breathe?
Okay, so that's a fleshly limit. I agree.
Well,
if we don't sustain ourselves physically, we decay.
Okay, there's a point at which your instinct is going
to there's something controlling the body, Lyserge. We know we're not the body.
Hungry.
We can force the body to work till it passes out.
Can you change what you want and desire?
Do things that are not intuitive to the body. We can self-harm. We can self-heal. We can manipulate the body. We can change out parts like Tinker Toys. I mean, I don't think the core and essence of what we are is like a finger or a toe or an arm or a foot, for that matter.
Would actions like those ever lack a motivation, or would they lack a series of events that led up to such a decision?
So, for example, during the Civil War, men got gangrene and they would have their legs amputated. Did their consciousness fade out of their body when they lost their leg?
Some did, yes. Some did.
Some of them died.
You're acting like that they don't want to cut their leg off is their sole desire, but they have.
I didn't add all that.
There's competing desires.
I was just using it as an example. I didn't add all that.
There's competing. Yeah, I know, but we're analyzing your example now.
Why are you going down this route? I'm talking about our free will and consciousness.
Yes, I'm analyzing this gangrene thing within the context.
What's my motive?
I am analyzing it within the context of free will. Listen, because motive is connected to this idea of free will. If you have gangrene, then you have competing desires, one to keep your leg and one to stay alive, and one of those is going to win out. And in the situation where you cut the leg off, it's your desire to live which wins out above the desire to keep your leg. And you might think you freely chose that, but the thing is the situation that you arrived in where you have gangrene on your leg is not something you chose. That is what created the motivation for you to make the choice. So it was basically chosen for you.
I'm not talking about the choice. I'm not talking about the implications of that choice.
But that's what free will relates to, is choice.
No, I'm talking about the essence of what we are is not simply the flesh.
Hey, Tifa, can you choose to not have free will?
I know it. Listen, guys, I know it's a guess. Do you know what free will or consciousness is? This is my guess.
Yeah,
free will is a concept. It's an illusion.
Okay, so you don't have a choice to go to work. You can't just say, "Fuck it, I'm not going to go to work anymore."
Just because you have a choice doesn't negate the factors that led to why you chose that.
Do you have a choice of whether or not you want to go to work or not?
Listen,
yes.
Whether it's hinged on something you need or it's counterintuitive, do you have the choice to say, "Fuck it"?
Listen,
it's
Tifa,
not good for me, but I'm going to show up.
Tifa, I've already explained that there's measures. It's a measure of choice. Okay, now we are born with, okay, and it's encoded in our DNA. We are born with instinct. Okay, that's the id, right? Okay, now that is not a matter of choice. It is not conscious. It is reflexive. It is instinctual. Okay, for example, all babies are born our most primary instinct is self-preservation. This is Freudian pleasure-pain principle. Now, when you take a baby, a newborn baby, and you put it into water, the baby will naturally hold its breath. It doesn't have to be taught that behavior. Okay, when you put a baby up to a nipple, the baby will naturally start to suck. Okay, because it needs nourishment. Okay, that is not learned behavior. That is instinctive behavior. It's encoded in us genetically. Okay, these are not matters of free will. When it's a program, it runs. It's consciousness is basically like an operating system on your fucking computer. Okay, you can have different programs. Your consciousness is your personality.
What's writing the program? What's writing each individual move?
Your genetics and your environment.
Exactly.
So if you walk into a room full of empty cardboard boxes, that'll shape your decisions. Your response to a bunch of dry, dusty cardboard boxes will just automatically force you into some move. Without any of your own cognition, without any electricity firing anywhere throughout your body, without any hormones or chemicals firing.
Well, you can't stop that from the electricity is always firing. You will already have preconditions set.
What about
preferences
mood?
towards left and right, front and back. You will have there will also be, like, you're not going to have completely identical boxes. They're as much as you might try
about the boxes. I'm just saying that's in your environment. How does that shape your decisions?
Oh, listen. If you were talking about like going to work or not, what if you make a decision, whatever decision,
that's a choice.
Whatever choice you made, right? There is a series of events that have happened throughout your life that led to why you chose what you chose, right? And you didn't pick those events necessarily. You didn't pick the environment you were in that led you to have, there's always a reason why you picked a certain thing. Even if you may not be aware of that reason, there is a reason. There's a certain neural pathway in your brain that's been established based on your past environment, and that basically made the choice for you. You're just not aware of it. You're living in this illusion where you think you chose it yourself, free of all that, but you didn't.
No,
it was chosen before you decided.
We do choose things.
Can I please just add this? Outbound, I think you'll find this.
You're spot on there, man. You're spot on there, Outbound. I agree with you.
Outbound, get this, okay? I did a thought experiment on myself, okay, over the question of random. And I tried to come up with a random word. Okay, I was, you just think when you're in the bathtub or what. Okay, and this is what I was doing. And to back up your point, to validate your point, I tried to come up with a random word, and I picked green. Okay, and then the thing is I thought about it. Okay, and we can tap into our subconscious. And I recognized after the fact that the reason why I chose green was because in order to come up with a random thing, what the process that my mind did was I put a question to myself. And what the question was what is your favorite color? That's how I wasn't consciously aware at the time that I had asked myself that question. Only upon reflection, upon introspection, did I come to realize that the reason why I chose green was because my mind subconsciously asked a question. That's what happened.
Sorry, hold on a second though. Isn't this pseudoscientific because you're looking for a reason for the word? There's no way of testing against that, is there? Because you're just looking.
Actually, they have done tests. They have done tests.
Yeah, we're talking subjective science, okay, and it's not necessarily exclusively subjective. Also, had I been under empirical observation at the time, okay, through an fMRI, okay, it would have actually shown. We do have the technology where it would be, physically confirmable that is what happened. So it's not necessarily pseudoscientific.
I don't think you're able to find out from an MRI scan why you thought of the color green. Like,
yeah, but they might not be able to find out why. When they've put people in situations where they deliberate on a choice and then maybe they're not sure about an answer right away, but we can predict what their answer is before they say it. So your subconscious has already chosen a choice before you even realize it.
Yep.
Well, yeah,
it is.
Well,
the
what's
subconscious
causing
mind
your
is always working.
to make that dynamic move? Then what
In
is
fact,
that
the
spark?
subconscious mind is more. You know that myth about how we're only using 10% of our brain?
How does it manifest? Why
Okay,
why
the
why,
reason
why does that
for
activate?
myth
And how
is
does that
because
connect
we
to
are
anything?
not consciously aware of most of what is going on with
but what is that?
with our mental function.
But what
it's almost like you have like
you're saying there's a predeterminism.
It's almost like you have more than one brain in your head, and you're only aware of the frontal cortex. You're only aware of one of them, but they all work together to make the final decision.
Yeah,
and you're not aware of what the other ones are.
I heard about this in junior high.
That is
so
true.
So what?
Okay, in neurology now, we have learned so much in this day and age. Modern neuroscience and psychoneurology has established, beyond any question of a doubt whatsoever, that both hemispheres of the brain are independently conscious of one another. That's a fact.
So you guys are claiming that you would have talked about consciousness whether I had asked you that question or not. Like this would have occurred had I not asked that question.
Well, you're talking about free will you're talking about concepts that are interrelated. They're tied, like deeply tied to these other topics. The idea of choice and consciousness, all that stuff. That free will is basically describing how that stuff works.
Describing the unknowable.
Another kicker, okay.
But you guys are saying it's happening in your subconscious. But what needs to happen before your subconscious is operable? You need electricity. You need a certain amount of coherence.
That's just.
It mostly runs off chemicals and synapses. I think more than electricity.
There's a dynamic electric process happening. There is a dynamic electric process happening throughout the entire body. What is the electricity?
Well, you're talking axons, dendrites.
Is what we are just a dynamic lightning?
You got to learn neuroscience here.
It's not just electricity. There's also chemicals involved.
I'm aware there's various different chemicals stored throughout the body.
Right.
But if you want to say, is it like if we append to that and say, is it just electricity and chemicals? Yeah, I mean it's electricity and chemicals in motion. They're not just sitting there. But that's what it is.
There's also receptor sites in different parts of the organs as well to make all this.
Which allow pathways to be either open or closed.
But I think it's the electricity that opens the door for these different hormones to get released.
For example, aspirin.
The electricity is basically the key. The electricity is the essence of what we are.
Listen, Tifa. Aspirin, was discovered in Germany, Bayer, Now, aspirin is acetylsalicylic acid, and as a chemical compound, it is geometrically identical to what blocks off pain, which is naturally produced, So when you take aspirin, what it does is it blocks the pain receptors. It's basically a general anesthetic. It's a mild general anesthetic because it stops the brain from receiving the pain signals that come through the nervous system, of which we have two. There's two nervous systems, right? One is autonomous and one is sympathetic. One is actionary according to function, the will of the conscious mind. Like as I speak, all the movements, that's all controlled through the autonomous or the automatic nervous system. Now then we have this sympathetic, which is reflex. Like if you touch something that's hot, you're not paying attention to it. And it's like, so the signal from touching, the stove element, it sends the response, the signal to the brain to let your body know that it's being harmed, right? See, that's how this shit works.
Are you on about? Now I've just joined the call, so maybe I don't really understand the conversation. But are we referring to the Lebet experiment?
Well, he just explained how aspirin plugs up receptors And there's a parasympathetic. There's a parasympathetic and an
how get this how alcohol
nervous
works.
system.
You know how alcohol works. When you drink alcohol, right? Alcohol was a barbiturate.
It thins the blood.
Well, what alcohol does is it inhibits inhibitors. Okay, which you know how they say in vino veritas, right? In a sense, okay, drinking alcohol is like a window to the soul, so to speak, because it inhibits
your inhibitions are free. Yes.
Well, this is I've studied on fucking. I study on so much.
You become more bold.
Pardon me. See this. You get into.
You just said.
Have you studied psychology?
It inhibits your inhibitors or whatever. Restricts your inhibition or whatever. Yeah, your inhibition's free. You're more bold.
Like different drugs, have different effects and stuff. And what I was saying there, do you understand what the superego is?
Oh, we're not getting to fucking Freudian psychology.
This is some kind of a pre-made explanation for something that happens.
No, look, Sigmund Freud was a fucking neurologist before he became.
He was a fucking pseudoscientist, man.
No, Freud thought that he could cure his patients with cocaine.
No,
he was a pseudoscientist, man.
I believe he did. He was giving his patients cocaine. He thought it was a miracle cure.
It's literally a pseudoscience. He looks any evidence that comes into it, any evidence that he's faced with, will support his hypothesis. That's the problem with Freud.
Look, the bottom line, okay, you will not find a psychology textbook that doesn't reference Freud more than any other person.
Lyserge.
Hold on a minute. They do reference Freud, where he is the father of psychoanalysis. But the problem is that psychoanalysis is a pseudoscience. You know what I mean? It's
pseudoscience.
Lyserge. If I could hook up various different testing. Like O-scopes and different things to measure acute voltage in the human body, and I did a few experiments. What would you need to be convinced that electricity was essentially the key to open up every pathway in the body to allow us to do everything that we do? Because I believe that's how that works.
Well, see, that's what are you, a fucking electric universe cultist, man?
You need. So when you're trying to recall memory, for example, a certain part of the brain gets electricity reliably every single time, especially when you're thinking about the same type of memory. Now there's
focus on electricity, like we're only made of electricity and nothing
predictable
else.
reactions in different parts of the body.
Electricity is not the key; it's just part of the process. The chemicals are a part of the process too. It would all be the key.
I might say that, but electricity, in order for a gland in your brain to open up, it has to be hit with electricity to open it up.
Yeah, but you also have to have the gland, which is made up of chemicals, and the process you're talking.
To get the proper
probably
response.
also
There are also people that are missing glands or have glands that don't work or they overact, and it causes.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to get at is that your focus on electricity as if it's the key or it's the only thing that matters is absurd.
I think it's what opens things up in the body.
In order for something like you have to also have the thing that's opening up, which it's made up of chemicals.
Well,
like there's also a chemical process.
You need to lock the door and the room.
So you have to. So when you say you have to have the electricity, yeah, that's true. Yes. But you also have to have all the other parts too. Electricity is not like this.
The electricity is going to determine which
above all the rest.
Activated. It's going to determine how much adrenaline you get. It's going to determine how much cortisol you get. It's going to determine how much serotonin you get.
But it's not the only thing that determines that.
It's the trigger. It's the trigger. The electricity is
not the only trigger.
What else is a trigger?
The chemical reaction.
You need everything with consciousness. Consciousness is not just electricity. It's it's the harmony of functions of the brain. It's all the brain and function